weekly at this time, we talk with the Mason County Sheriff's Office, and Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury on the air with us today. Also, Jail Chief Kevin Hanson. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning.
Good to see you guys in here once again. Kevin, it's been a little while since we've talked, so we're talking jail today, and you've got some prepared remarks with some, there's some factoids that we have to get in, so you want to make sure they're right. So let's just start talking. You wanted to start with that, and then we'll go into it?
Yeah, sure.
All right, sounds good.
So the jail population, we have 74 general population male inmate beds in the facility. We have 20 female inmate beds for a total jail bed count of 94. That does not include the 18 beds in the new alternative sentencing program. The jail was originally built and designed for 48. Then throughout the years, additional bunks were added and remodeling occurred, resulting in the current bed count. In April 2016, I became aware of some confusion by some members of the Board of County Commissioners on how many beds actually existed in the facility. So on April 24th, the sheriff and the undersheriff and I gave tour to the county commission, and we actually physically counted the bunks, which totaled 94. So today, members of the community are still telling us that there's some confusion about the number of beds, and that the jail has plenty of space, and that the staff, space and staff, to not necessitate a reduced inmate jail population and booking restrictions. So in 2017, we had an approved jail budget, which is a sub-budget under the sheriff's budget. It was approved by the BOCC at $4.9 million. And in June 2017, the BOCC announced a 7.5 mid-year budget reduction, cutting the jail budget by almost $550,000. So of the $4.9 million annual budget, $3.4 million is for salaries and benefits, which are exclusively negotiated between the Corrections Deputy Union and the Board of County Commissioners. That means that the sheriff doesn't have any control over those expenses. $100,000 for inmate medical services, $700,000 for inmate medical services, $200,000 for inmate food, $200,000 for overtime and holiday pay, and that leaves about $400,000 for repairs and maintenance and power and water and that kind of thing, cars and inmate supplies, operational supplies. So the point of that is that there's very little discretionary spending that we have available to us to make $500,000 worth of cuts. So since September of 2016, the jail staff is concentrating on efficient and safe operations. We managed to reduce the inmate food costs from $450,000 annually to less than $200,000 by contracting services from private industry. We eliminated $300,000 in outsourcing expenses by opening the remodel and housing our own female inmates back on site, with the most cost savings efficiencies realized by staff. We opened the alternative sentencing area almost 4 months early without BOCC funding. The jail has 31 uniformed corrections deputy positions, 2 support staff, 3 community service officers, 1 lieutenant, and 1 chief. The 2016 average daily population was over 130. The minimum staffing to manage this population while maintaining custody, security, and control of prisoners in a safe, efficient, and constitutional manner is 4 deputies, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. That means 1 control room operator, 1 supervisor, and 2 corrections deputies to manage the rest of the jail operations. During the mid-year 2017 cuts, we had 5 vacant deputy positions that we were in the process of filling. Those 5 vacant positions equated to an annual expense of almost $425,000. Faced with the draconian, non-emergent, and excessive mid-year cuts, we had very limited options and had to unfund the vacant corrections officer positions. This resulted in a 15% reduction to our jail staff. As some may know, it takes roughly 5 employees to cover 1 8-hour shift, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This reduction forced us to reduce our minimum staffing by 1 8-hour shift position on night shift from 4 deputies to 3, often leaving 1 supervisor, 1 control room operator, and 1 corrections deputy to manage 90 to 100 inmates between the hours of 10 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning. So to manage the general population above 94, we actually need the 31 previously funded positions. The sheriff's obligation is to provide a safe, efficient, and effective working and environment and living conditions for our jail staff and inmates while protecting our community. We cannot keep our inmates, community, and staff safe while managing the same number of inmates with 15% less staff. With the reduction of staff, we were forced to reduce the inmate population cap proportionately, resulting in a new cap from 94 to 80. So the only way to manage that new cap is by carefully selecting who takes priority for the jail beds during the jail acceptance process. People who are imminent threat to safety, community safety will always have a bed, and people contacted for minor offenses will be allowed to self-report to the courts. People committing serious crimes against others will be booked, and people committing property crimes will generally be referred to the prosecutor's office. Despite our desire to fulfill our mission and protect our community, and due to the circumstances beyond the sheriff's control, without proper funding, staffing, and facility space, the jail's essential purpose cannot be fulfilled and public safety is compromised. So there's a lot of data in that statement there I put together, and we just need to make sure that the community knows exactly what's going on.
Sure.
So
there's 94 beds. You walked around and you saw 94 beds, but there are circumstances where folks cannot be held with another person. Is that kind
That's
of where
correct.
you get some of these? Well, this room only has one person, or this room has
That's correct.
two, but there's 3 beds. However that works.
That's correct. And we've still got members of the commission going out and telling people there's 144 beds. That is not the case.
And so, Kevin, you mentioned 130. Is that the daily average of people that come in and come out? Because if you're stuck at 94 or down to 80 based on the numbers the state's telling you, or whoever tells you that for safety for everybody involved, it should be at about 80. The 130 number, that is kind of the general. Somebody's coming in, they have a case that day, and then they come out at the end, so those don't count at the end of the day?
no, let's do count. The 130 is the average daily population.
Okay.
So some days we may have had 112, and some days we may have had 150. That was last year.
Okay.
And you also got to remember last year that we didn't have booking restrictions on, and the doors were pretty much open, and we were outsourcing. So that's kind of what drove that number up last year, is that we had about 30 inmates that were housed in other facilities.
What's the time of the day? And you mentioned down to 4 support staff throughout the overnights. Is that generally, a calmer time because people are sleeping, but still things can happen?
Not support staff.
Okay,
Yeah,
just staff in general.
Yeah, so we chose the hours of 10 at night until 6 in the morning because that's when the inmates are locked down. And it's the least impact to our staff, having that one body not there.
Yeah.
So that was the best we could do with that circumstance.
Jeff, my concern on this is just like a couple of weeks ago, Chief Moody was upset. And Chief and I are great friends. We absolutely agree on this. He's as frustrated as I am because during the time when we had outsourcing and we were able to do that and we were able to hold people accountable, our crime rates came down.
Sure.
And as soon as we got limited, we're watching those crime rates start to go back up. And as the two folks that are out there in the community trying to do the best we can to keep the community safe, there's things that are out of our control. And when we can't hold people accountable, you're going to start seeing this. And we've predicted that and predicted it and predicted it. It's fairly common sense, actually. The challenging part for me is, and again, last week, and you'll see some things that were changed this week, you had some comments made about the sheriff's the budget and getting our budget in on time. And if you were at the commissioners meeting, I stood up and gave a little dissertation on why you need to know what the backstory is, what the facts are, and what the history is. We've since met, and most of those things are now straightened out. And once again, as we brought up our concerns, I don't want to say they fell on deaf ears, but it certainly wasn't being listened to. And once people started listening and the other elected officials started speaking up, seeing what they saw in that elected officials meeting, then we started to be heard. And those things have now are being resolved. But oftentimes you hear a number at the end and you don't know what's going on in between. And that's what's happened in the jail. And we have people within our own government that are out there giving misinformation. As one of my famous friends says, they're getting into other people's rice bowls and they have no idea of what they're doing or what they're saying. And if they would focus on their purpose on what they're supposed to be doing and let other people do what we need to be doing. Most of those things are involved, but when you start getting out into your area and you call the guy that repairs dishwashers to come fix your chimney or something, or build a fireplace, you start to have problems. And
Sure.
we're seeing that micromanagement so much going on, where somebody that has nothing to do with or knows nothing about one thing is trying to instruct other people on how to do it. And it's really been damaging to our county government.
It seems like over the years, the trend lines, perhaps for general crime overall in America, on the way down, but just the individual costs for health for the inmates, for the food for the inmates, and then the salaries, of course, those all continue to go up. So how do we fix all this? I mean, do we have to just say, okay, we need a new jail, it's going to hurt the pocketbooks of everybody in the county for a few years or something, and we got to get this done? Or do we go back to the outsourcing? Is that something that you guys are thinking about? Or what can we do to help people sleep at night knowing that if a crime happens, people are going to be held accountable?
I think one of the things that needs to be done with our county government is we need to have established goals and objectives and priorities of government. I've been asking for this for 11 years. You go to other counties, they have established goals and objectives, what the important things are that they're going to cover first and next and down and so forth. But they have long-term, not a couple days away, not for next year. We're just going to cut the budget and get us there. These have to be long-term established goals and objectives. And of what's your priority in the community. I think now what you're looking at is you're looking at all of a sudden within the, we were saying for years we should go out for an issue involving the tax issue years ago. And then when it became just a terrible circumstance, the very last minute, slammed that out to the people. But there have been no planning, goals and objectives. And been working towards that. Some of these cuts that are being made right now, deeply concerned with it. The concern is that we also have to have this built-up reserve budget overnight. That can be planned out over a period of time. So we brought that up months ago, and now I've heard that, well, we may be looking at that. But to slam on the brakes that quickly without any planning, and to not plan ahead now for the future, you're going to keep going right back to the same situation. History's going to repeat itself.
So this November, the voters in the county have the opportunity to raise the levy lid lift, have a little bit more property taxes. Some of it will presumably go to public safety. Is this going to head to the jail, to kind of the support staff within the jail, to just salaries, or will this help mitigate this a little bit?
I'll try to answer that as best I can and stay somewhat impartial on that. I don't believe that people are going to vote for something that they don't know exactly where the money's going. When my kids come to me and ask me for a fair sum of money, I want to know what it's going to be used for, and I want to know that it's going to be used efficiently and effectively. I've said for years that if you go out for this, you need to tell the people exactly what that is going to be spent on, what percentage of it, and who it's going to. This was apparently semi-agreed on the last time. There were some numbers put out, and now it's been withdrawn again. The last document that I saw that was produced by the county is now they're not going to put out where it's going. There's some rationale on that. But I'm telling you, for me, before I put my money into something, I want to know where it's going and what it's going to be used for. And I can't seem to quite get that for myself established. So that's going to be up to the people to decide if that's where they want to go. Is it going to hurt us if we don't get it in the sheriff's office or in law enforcement? Maybe. If we get it, is it going to help? Don't know, because I don't know exactly where it's going to tell you where it's going.
Kevin, a couple of things that you showed or were talking about in here. You did a pretty substantial reduction in food costs from $450,000 to $200,000. Are there other areas besides food that are being looked at to cut? And is that through privatization, or is that through contracting throughout other things?
There's another contract that we're working on right now that could save us a pretty significant amount of money. Mm-hmm. It has to do with repayment for medical services.
Oh, okay.
So there's the law. The law dictates how much that we're responsible for repaying for medical services, and I think that we need to renegotiate some contracts in that venue, and I think we can end up saving some more money. So
you guys are working on
for
doing
sure.
this yourself too. It's not like you're just continually asking.
A number of years ago, the undersheriff and the chief came up with an idea to do a lease on leased cars, and we took a great deal of grief over that, but yet it saved the county an incredible amount of money over that period of time when our reductions were back there. And we had huge differences of opinions on that, but it saved a lot of money. But it's up to the challenge is all these circumstances. The reason that we have the government that we have in the U.S. today is that we have a checks and balances system of government. So no one entity is controlling everything. And it's the same way within the county. You have independently elected officials. Those independently elected officials are responsible for their own budgets. When they're handed to them by the Board of County Commissioners, it's yours to make that happen. That's what the people elected you to do. The problem that we have is we even had a discussion a couple of weeks ago among the elected officials about positional authority coming from the board. I think that's been moved aside. But that is not for somebody else. It's not for me to go into somebody else's office or their department and tell them how to run it. And the problem that we've seen most recently is a micromanagement of how to do that. And when you have people that don't have the training, education, or experience in that area, telling people that do what to do, it becomes a mess.
Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury, Kevin Hanson, the jail chief. Good to talk with you, and these will continue these conversations, of course, and it's good to have you come in and talk about them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see
Appreciate
you guys.
it.